Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12, broadcasting from Cable 12 studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, 2 men are charged with that botched armed robbery attempt at the Atlantis resort. The Prime Minister reacts to the negative economic outlook by an international credit rating agency. Also, he gives an indication as to when we'll learn the date for the gambling referendum. Plus, after a massive fire more than a year ago, the new AID building is slated to open next spring. We've got those stories and so much more coming up. I'm Paige McCartney, and NB12 starts right now. Welcome once again to NB12. Well, just 2 days after a group of current and former Atlantis employees reportedly attempted to rob the Atlantis resort on Paradise Island, 2 men were brought before the courts to face charges related to the felony. Christina McNeil was there as the charges were read, and she filed this report.
Two men police believe are behind the botched Atlantis casino heist on Sunday, today charged with 32 counts related to the robbery.
Dozens of onlookers gathered at the South Street Court complex to get a look at the men police claim are behind the casino robbery. 31-year-old Vadis Morrison of Hunt Street off Carmichael Road, seen in the blue and white shirt, and 30-year-old Tarico Bernard Bethel of DeVoe Street, seen in the brown hoodie, appeared before Deputy Chief Magistrate Carolita Bethel, charged with 32 counts related to Sunday's botched robbery. The pair was charged with armed robbery after police say they used pepper spray on Sunday when they allegedly robbed Atlantis employee Sharon Thompson of $106,260.10, the property of Atlantis Resort, Paradise Island. Morrison and Bethel are also charged with shop breaking. Police say they broke and entered the Atlantis cashier's cage with the intent to commit a felony. The pair is further charged with 30 counts of garroting and causing harm to 15 Atlantis employees, making them physically incapable of resistance. Garroting describes the act of strangling in order to rob. Bethel is a former Atlantis employee who worked at the resort for 4 years. So far, 5 men have been arrested in relation to the incident. Police arrested 3 of the men on Sunday dressed in uniform. 1 suspect was caught in the ceiling where the cash was stashed in bags, 1 arrested in the cashier's cage, and the 3rd just outside the room. Today, Morrison was represented by attorney Muriel Ducille. Bethel was represented by attorney Ian Cargill, who argued that the charges of armed robbery and shop breaking were duplicitous, as were the charges of garroting and causing harm.
The prosecution will proceed by way of a voluntary bill of indictment that's expected to be served when Morrison and Bethel return to court on November 27th. Now, bail has been denied. They have been remanded to Her Majesty's prison until then. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
Well, Prime Minister Perry Christie today responding to the Standard & Poor's recent revision of the country's economic outlook from stable to negative. Prime Minister Christie and State Minister of Finance Michael Halkitis revealed what plans are in place to increase government revenue and curb spending. Our Jasmine Bonamy has more in this report.
It's bad news for the Bahamian economy, but that S&P downgrade is something that Prime Minister Perry Christie says he expected. But the Prime Minister was quick to point out that the revised outlook will not affect our ability to borrow. While warning of a possible downgrade to this country's credit rating, the S&P noted that instead of peaking and starting to decline, the government's deficit rose even higher in the fiscal year ending June 2012. The Christie administration took office in May. But today, Christie told reporters outside Cabinet that the warning was expected, given the high cost overruns related to capital works and their impact on the deficit.
We expected what happened with Standard & Poor's. We expected some kind of negative outlook. We are up to the task, as the Minister said, of being able to address these issues, and I have every confidence that we'll do so, keeping the Bahamian people informed as we go along.
Our news team also spoke to former State Minister for Finance Shivargo Lang, who says the blame for the country's negative outlook from Standard & Poor's should be placed squarely on the shoulders of this government and not its predecessors. Lang said he doesn't see any sign that this government is prepared to contain expenditure, which he says does not bode well for the country's credit rating moving forward. But Prime Minister Christie insists his government is cleaning up a mess created by the Ingram administration's reckless spending.
We made a point to tell people that there has been this massive over expenditure on the roads. And that clearly was a signal to everyone that something had gone wrong with respect to controlling expenditure. As you know, we had to borrow an additional $75 million, and when the House of Assembly meets, we're going to seek move a resolution in support of that to try and finish these roadworks. The other point, though, is that they recognize that a new government didn't have the time to examine this before we had to move to a budget communication. They recognize that a new government must make some adjustments with respect to what it promised the people of the country, and therefore would have to find some way to implement its own programs.
Christie added that finding better ways to increase revenue is a task he placed in the hands of Minister of State for Finance Michael Halkitis. Halkitis says government's plan now is to address the underperformance of revenue, grow the economy, and contain expenditure. A major part of their tax reform plans is pursuing the implementation of a value-added tax regime as a means of generating more revenue.
You have to eliminate waste. You have to identify where there is waste and eliminate it. We have to do a better job of procurement in terms of how the government spends its money. And we believe that the right approach is a three-pronged approach, which is we have to grow the economy, we have to get the economy growing, and we have very aggressively been going after foreign direct investment on that score. We have to improve the performance of the revenue, and we're addressing that through our tax reform plans and our modernization of our revenue agencies. And we have to hold the line on the expenditure. So those three elements are key to any strategy. We are doing a number of initiatives in terms of revenue administration, modernizing our revenue collection, etc. And we are holding the line on expenditure. And so we expect to see fruit from this beginning next year. And we are dedicated to being disciplined in this process, because if we are not, we can see the result has been forecast. So I think, like I said, we have a plan, we're up to the task, and we're going to be disciplined in the execution.
Halkitis says more details will be revealed concerning those tax plans when the House of Assembly meets in October. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
A date for the upcoming gambling referendum has yet to be announced, but Prime Minister Christie also revealed that he's even closer to announcing the highly anticipated date. The Prime Minister says he plans to inform all the necessary stakeholders to ready themselves as the campaign heats up for the Abaco by-election. The by-election will be held on October 15th.
I anticipate that during the course of this election campaign, I will be indicating to the proponents and opponents that they should prepare, because I'm anticipating the referendum is this year.
And Christie also fired back at last week's comments made by Free National Movement Deputy Leader Loretta Butler Turner, who insisted the government is wasting money by hiring a British consultancy firm. Christie called Butler Turner misinformed. Well, Christie would not say how much the consultants from the firm Dixon, Wilson & Co. were being paid, but insisted their input is vital. The British firm is expected to release a report containing their recommendations on updating the country's gaming laws and how best to set up a national lottery.
They will be coming back to us shortly. I expected a report, I think I indicated in 2 weeks, but most certainly in the immediate future, so that we could analyze that and then be able to say to the Bahamian people, this is what is going to happen, and this is the question we're going to ask you, and this is the date we're going to ask you to do that. Now it's up to you to determine what you do and what you say.
Meantime, church leaders are expected to kick off their anti-gambling campaign into high gear as the referendum nears. Well, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram today making no apologies for purchasing a 2013 Mercedes-Benz for the office of the Prime Minister before the last general election. The car, which reportedly cost 6 figures, was bought to replace the stretched Lincoln Town car, which has been having major mechanical problems. Ingram, who was in Abaco when we spoke to him, pointed out that when he came to office in 1992, former Prime Minister Lyndon Pinling had a Jaguar and a BMW at his disposal. And both those cars broke down shortly after that. A compact Lincoln Town car was purchased for the Prime Minister. He said that car eventually had major mechanical problems, and a stretch Lincoln Town car was ordered for the office of the Prime Minister when Ingram was leaving office in 2002. Ingram said that car was also having major mechanical problems this year, and a Mercedes was ordered for the Prime Minister before the general election, and until that could arrive, a Kia was ordered for the Prime Minister. Outside Cabinet today, Christie noted that his Kia is not up to the same standard as the cars used by other members of his cabinet, but he's not yet decided if he will use the Mercedes.